What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stack. Welcome back. If you've been here before, I'm Neon Mushroom, and we have a Commander EDH gameplay video for you guys today. But before we get into that, I've got a few quick things to run over, including the mat giveaway. If you're a patron, you know a lot about this because you have your own giveaway, and if you're a normal subscriber that heard the news over the last 2 weeks, you probably know that we're doing a giveaway that ends tonight. There's no exact time for when it ends tonight, so if you go back and comment on that video, there's a card here, there's a video down in the description on how you can enter that giveaway. It's for these sick, unique playmats that are kind of a cross between two of the playmats that we sell. By the way, we sell playmats. That's also in the description below. We haven't been peddling those very hard, but we think they're cool. Here's an example of one of the ones you can get. It's pretty cool. This isn't really doing it justice, but I'm not set up to do product recording at the moment. Anyway, that ends tonight, so if you wanted to get in on that, these are the last few hours that you can do it. Then, that's it. We have live streaming on Sunday. I think there might be some special stuff happening this Sunday on the live stream, but I don't know enough to actually say anything definitive in this video. So, getting off of shilling, going back to, let's go ahead and take a look at who's going to be playing, what decks they decided to play, and what opening hands they've decided to keep, in addition to the typical upkeep stuff.
As always, if you like this show or any of our other shows on YouTube, liking, sharing, and subscribing helps us out immensely. If you like our content and don't mind that extra mile, you can always support us over on Patreon, over at patreon.com/mtgthestack.
Patron shout out time, it's Derek Willis. And again, nothing super funny to say. We're in the middle of a bunch of stuff where we move stuff around and we're changing the studio we're going to be working out of more regularly. So things aren't where they're supposed to be, and I can't shoot the weirder patron shout outs. So instead, here's my snake. Is this content? This is content, right? That's content. It's a good content.
Comment down below any of your thoughts and feelings, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Alright, first up we've got Guy, and he's playing Zacama, Primal, Calamity. This is Guy's big mana combo deck, and the whole idea of this deck is to get to a critical mass of mana and get access to the card Sanctum of Eternity and either Shivan Gorge or Blind Obedience in order to infinitely cast Zacama and kill everybody with infinite damage. Guy's going to be keeping a 7-card hand today with an Enlightened Tutor, a Sylvan Scrying, Rolling Earthquake, Zendikar Resurgent, a Sylvan Library, a Forest, and an Ancient Tomb. Next up there's me, and I'm playing the partner pairing of Vial Smasher the Fierce and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. The deck's game plan is very straightforward. I just want to establish having a Vial Smasher, clone it with my Sakashima, and now that I have a mirror gallery-like effect allowing me to have multiple copies of the same legendary creature, I can keep cloning Vial Smasher, and at some point I'm going to keep rolling dice, and hopefully everyone just randomly dies to Vial Smasher's triggers. I'm also keeping a 7-card hand with a Deadly Rollick, a Nightscape Familiar, Watery Grave, Basic Island, my own Ancient Tomb, a Verdant Catacombs, and a Graven Cairns. Next up we've got Ajdin playing Beledros Witherbloom, and if you've been watching the channel for a little bit, especially our live streams, you'll know he wanted to tune how this deck was originally built, and he's done that today. While the initial build was more of an aristocrat style build, this one is focusing on making as many land drops as possible and over abusing Beledros Witherbloom's activated ability to double up on mana on key turns. This allows for some pretty classic win conditions, including Ob Nixilis the Fallen and Torment of Hellfire. Ajdin wound up mulliganing to 6, and he keeps the hand of Lotus Cobra, Harrow, Rampant Growth, Snow-Covered Swamp, 2 Snow-Covered Forests, and he has to bottom a copy of Snow-Covered Forest. Last but certainly not least, we have Foley returning to the channel, and he's playing the partner pairing of Trynn&Silvar. This is a classic aristocrat style deck and wants to finish the game with something like an Angel of Glory's Rise combo. Foley is also keeping a hand of 7 cards, and he keeps Skullclamp, Grand Abolisher, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, Swamp, Plains, and an Arid Mesa. I work here, I need the good one. Hey, 1, 2, 3, flip.
Swear to God.
Calvin was sitting there.
Alright, Guy 1 card game, so he's going to start by drawing his card for turn, and then in his first main phase he'll play a basic forest, and just pass the turn to me. I'll draw, and I'm going to play an Ancient Tomb as my land for turn. Then I'll tap it for 2 colorless, losing 2 life, and I'll play a Talisman of Dominance, and with nothing else, I'll just pass the turn right to Ajdin. He's just going to drop a Snow-Covered Forest as his land for turn, and with no further actions, he will pass over to Foley, who will draw, and Foley's going to play an Arid Mesa as his land for turn. Then we're going to go to Guy for the second cycle of turns. Guy liked my play so much that he's also going to play an Ancient Tomb, then he's going to tap out for 3 mana, losing 2 life to the Ancient Tomb, and he'll use 2 of it to play Nature's Lore. That'll have him searching his library for a forest, he will shock in a Stomping Ground, dropping to 36 life, and then he's going to tap it for green and use the floating colorless to cast Sylvan Library. With nothing else, he'll just pass the turn to me. I'll untap and draw my card for turn. Then in my first main phase, I'll just drop a basic mountain as my land for turn. Then I'm going to lose 3 life and tap out, leaving a mana floating, which is just going to drain, because I want to cast my commander Vial Smasher the Fierce. With nothing else, I'll pass the turn back over to Ajdin, who's going to drop a second Snow-Covered Forest, then he's going to tap out and cast a Lotus Cobra. He'll try to pass to Foley, but before he can, Foley wants to crack that fetch. He's going to drop down to 39, and he's going to get a basic mountain. After that, Foley's going to bin the fetch, untap, upkeep, and draw his card for turn. In his first main phase, the first thing Foley will do is drop a basic plains as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 1 mana, because he wants to cast a Skull Clamp, and then he's just going to pass the turn right back to Guy.
Ding ding ding. Is this your first library?
Dude, this is my first library.
Dude, this is Guy's first library.
No way.
Holy shit, this is...
Wait, what? It's Virginia.
His library. You don't put those in your hand. They're distinctly separate.
Hey.
Redo could kick you in the balls right now.
Hey.
No, we're not kidding, that was actually Guy's first library. He's going to take an extra card off of the library, losing 4 life, and then go to his first main phase, where he's going to tap for 3, losing 2 to the Ancient Tomb, and he's going to play Kodama's Reach. He'll search his library for 2 basic lands. He's actually going to get 2 basic plains. One will come into play tapped, and then he's going to bin the Kodama's Reach, and he'll play another basic plains as his land for turn. After that, he's going to tap both of his remaining mana, and he's going to cast Sylvan Scrying. He's again going to search his library, this time for a copy of Temple of the False God. He'll add that to his hand, and with no further actions, he'll pass the turn to me. I'll start my turn with the Watery Grave in play untapped, so I'll lose 2 life. Then I'm going to tap for 2 mana, and I'm going to cast Nightscape Familiar. That's my first spell for turn, so it triggers my Vial Smasher. We'll set up dice, roll, and Ajdin has to take 2 off of my Vial Smasher.
I could just play Sakashima right now. Man, I sure don't fucking trust Guy. So I'm gonna go to combat and attack him.
Yeah.
Guy's going to take 2 commander damage, and I have no further actions, so I'll pass to Ajdin, who's going to drop a Snow-Covered Forest, trigger his Lotus Cobra. That's going to make him a black mana, so he's going to tap out, using the black floating, to play Dread Presence. After that, he'll head into combat and attack Guy with Lotus Cobra, bringing him down to 26. And with that, he's finished, so we're going to move over to Foley's turn.
I like your guys' Ancient Tomb, so I'm gonna play my own.
Hold on.
Foley's makes the 3rd Ancient Tomb in play, and he is going to tap out, losing 2 life to the tomb. He forgets to physically do it here, but we do remember, and he casts his commander, Trynn, Champion of Freedom. After that, we go to Guy's turn, where he's going to resolve his Sylvan Library. He decides he wants to keep 1 extra card, so he takes 4 damage, and Foley remembers to take his damage off of the Ancient Tomb from the previous turn. Then Guy's going to play Temple of the False God as his land for turn, and then he's going to tap out for some mana and cast Mesa Enchantress. He has 1 floating because of the Temple of the False God, so when he taps for 2 more and plays Gift of Paradise, that's going to go onto his basic plains, it's going to trigger Mesa Enchantress, and it also has an Enter the Battlefield trigger of its own, so Guy's going to draw a card, gain 3 life, and with nothing else, he's just going to pass the turn back to me. I'll untap, draw my card for turn, and play a Graven Cairns as my land for turn. Then I'm going to head into combat and attack Guy for 2 with my commander. He has no blocks, so he's going to drop down to 23. Then, in my second main phase, I want to tap for 3 and cast Sakashima of 1,000 Faces for its reduced cost. When I cast it, that's going to trigger Vial Smasher, so we set up the dice, we're going to roll, and Foley's going to wind up taking 4 damage. Sakashima enters as a copy of Vial Smasher, and will pass the turn to Ajdin. Ajdin's going to play a Snow-Covered Swamp, and that's going to trigger both Dread Presence and Lotus Cobra. He'll add a black, and then he's going to use Dread Presence to kill the Mesa Enchantress, and Ajdin will gain 2 life. Then he taps for 1 green and uses his floating black mana to cast a Rampant Growth. That's going to have him search his library for a basic land. It'll be a Snow-Covered Swamp, which again triggers Dread Presence and Lotus Cobra. He adds black with the snake, and the Dread Presence is going to cause him to lose a life and draw a card. Then he's going to tap for 2 mana and use that black he has floating to pull a similar trick. He's going to cast Harrow, sacrificing one of his lands, and he will search his library for 2 basics that will come into play. He's going to choose to get 2 Snow-Covered Swamps. This triggers Lotus Cobra twice and the Dread Presence twice. He's going to add 2 black, and then he's going to use the Dread Presence to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Then he's going to use the Lotus Cobra mana in conjunction with his other 3 lands to play the Gitrog Monster. This gives him an extra land drop, so he plays a Snow-Covered Swamp, triggering both Lotus Cobra and the Dread Presence. He's going to lose a life and draw a card. He's going to make a black mana, then he'll use that black mana and the land to play a Wish Claw Talisman. He's finally finished, so he passes the turn to Foley. Foley untaps, and in his first main phase, he's going to play a Shadowblood Ridge as his land for turn. Then he'll head into combat and attack me with his commander. I'll block with Nightscape Familiar and regenerate it. I would take 3 anyway, but at least this isn't commander damage. Then in his second main phase, he'll tap out, losing 2 life to the Ancient Tomb. He'll add Mardu colors, and he's going to cast Mythos of Snapdax. I do not like the way that spell would resolve if he chose the modes, so I'm going to respond by casting Fierce Guardianship to counter it. When I do so, it's going to trigger both of my Vial Smashers, so we have to set up and roll. The first one hits Foley for 3, and the second one also hits Foley for 3. After that's all said and done, Foley moves to his end step and makes a human thanks to his commander, and will move right back over to Guy's turn, where he'll untap and trigger his Sylvan Library. He draws 3 cards, but decides he's a coward, so he puts 2 of them back. Then he moves to his first main phase, where he's going to drop a basic mountain as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 5 mana, using the Temple of the False God, to cast Fumigate. I do have a response because I want to get some damage in. For free, I'm going to cast Deadly Rollick, targeting the Gitrog monster, and that will wind up resolving, but first we have 2 Vial Smasher the Fierce triggers. I roll for the first one, that's going to be Guy, and the second one's going to hit Ajdin. After that, that's going to wipe the entire board, and Fumigate is going to cause Guy to gain a bunch of life, putting him up at a grand total of 26. After that, Guy's going to tap out the rest of his mana, losing 2 to the Ancient Tomb, to cast Hour of Promise. When he does this, he can search his library for 2 lands. He's going to get a Sanctum of Eternity, a key combo piece, and a Cavern of Souls, and put them both into play. With the Cavern, he will be naming Elder. With nothing else, we'll move to my turn, where I'll draw and play a basic island as my land for turn. Then I'll tap for 5, losing 2 life, to cast my Vial Smasher and pay for the commander tax. I have no further action, so I'm just going to pass the turn back to Ajdin, who will untap and draw his card for turn. In his first main phase, he's going to drop Castle Locktwain as his land for turn, which does come into play untapped. Then he's going to count out and tap 7 mana to play his commander, Beledros, Witherbloom. As soon as it resolves, he's going to pay 10 life, dropping down to 22, and untap all of his lands. After effectively doubling his mana for the turn, he decides he wants to do another big play, so he taps for 6, and he's going to cast Casualties of War. He's going to target Guy's Sanctum of Eternity and his Gift of Paradise. For Foley, he's going to hit the Skull Clamp, and he's obviously going to be hitting my Vial Smasher the Fierce. With nothing else, Ajdin is going to simply pass the turn to Foley. Foley drops a basic Swamp, and then Ajdin's going to remember to make a Pest token. He's going to forget to do this on upkeep a lot, but don't worry, we end up remembering all of the triggers at some point. Then Foley's going to tap for 4, and he's going to cast Species Specialist, losing 2 life to the tomb, and when it enters the battlefield, he's going to name Human. After that, we'll move to Guy's turn. Guy will untap and trigger the Sylvan Library again, and feeling like he's under pressure, he will not be paying any life. Ajdin will also make a Pest token, and Guy will keep 1 card out of those 3, then he'll play a basic Plains as his land for turn. Then in his first main phase, he's going to cast Nelia's Intervention, where X equals 3, so he's going to search his library for 3 lands. In this case, he's going to get Field of the Dead, Windswept Heath, and a Verdant Catacombs, and put those all in his hand. He already played land for turn, so he has no further actions, and he passes to me, where I'll draw my card for turn. Then I'm going to play my own Verdant Catacombs, and my deck only does one thing, so I'm going to tap for 7 mana, losing 2 life to the tomb, and recast Vial Smasher the Fierce. Then when I try to pass to Ajdin, he'll remember his Pest. He'll untap, and since it's his upkeep, he'll actually remember to make the Pest with the correct timing this time. Then he'll draw his card for turn. In his first main phase, he's going to move forward with the Landfall plan and play a Retreat to Kazandu. After that, he's going to play his land for turn. In this case, it's going to be a snow-covered swamp. Trigger the retreat, and then put a +1/+1 counter on his commander, Beledros. Then he'll head into combat and attack Guy with his commander and 3 pests for a grand total of 8 damage. Guy has no blockers, so he's going to drop down to 16 life and 5 commander damage from Ajdin. Then we'll move back to Foley's turn, where he'll draw a card, play a basic Plains as his land for turn. Then he's going to count out 6 mana and recast his commander, Trynn. This resolves, so then he wants to head into combat, and he's going to attack Guy with his Species Specialist for 2. Guy still has no blocker, so he's going to drop to 14. And then at Foley's end step, Ajdin will finally remember his Pest, and then Foley himself will make a 1/1 human off of his commander. Then we're going to move to Guy's turn, but before we can, he's going to tap for 1 white and cast an Enlightened Tutor. That's going to have him searching his library for an enchantment. This time he wants a Dryad of the Elysian Grove. He's going to put it on top of his library, untap, and then he's going to trigger his Sylvan Library, looking at the top 3, deciding he only wants to keep 1 and take no damage, and I imagine he's going to be taking the Dryad in this case. Then in his first main phase, Ajdin will remember to make a Pest token. Guy's going to tap out for some mana and cast Rolling Earthquake, where X equals 5. Ajdin quickly responds by activating Castle Locktwain, drawing a card and losing 2 life. He doesn't find anything, so the Earthquake resolves. All creatures and players take 5 damage, which effectively wipes the board, and Ajdin gains a bunch of life because he has a bunch of pests. Then, Guy's going to tap for 3 mana and cast Dryad of the Elysian Grove. This will give him an extra land drop, so he's going to start with a Field of the Dead, which triggers itself so he gets a 2/2 zombie. Then his extra land for turn will be a Windswept Heath, which also triggers Field of the Dead, so he's going to get a second 2/2 zombie. After that, he's going to try to pass to me, but before he can, I'll crack my Verdant Catacombs and get a tapped Blood Crypt. Then I'll untap and draw my card for turn.
Okay. It'd be funny. Yeah, it'd be funny. Land for turn. I'm gonna fetch. You guys aren't gonna believe this.
Yeah.
You're not. You're not gonna believe this. I'm gonna pay 2.
Okay.
Vial Smasher.
Wow.
Pass turn.
Ajdin will untap and draw his card for turn.
Fucking talisman.
Go find your Torment.
9 mana.
Oh no.
Witherdrip. Witherdrip, right?
Ajdin will spend 9 mana and cast for the second time this game his commander Witherbloom, pay 10 life, dropping to 11 to untap his lands, and play a snow-covered forest. This triggers the retreat, so Ajdin's going to put a +1/+1 counter on Witherbloom. Then he's going to tap for 5 mana and cast his own copy of Hour of Promise. That has him searching his library for both an Arch of Orazca and a Glacial Chasm. They'll both come into play, and he will sack the Glacial Chasm to itself. That's going to trigger the retreat 2 times, and he'll use both of those triggers to put +1/+1 counters on his commander. After that, he's going to tap for 1 mana and activate his Wish Claw, passing it to me to tutor a card out of his library. In this case, he's going to go get one of his personal favorites. It's going to be Torment of Hailfire. After that, he decides he's done enough for 1 turn. He'll fix his mana up and simply pass the turn to Foley, where he remembers to make a pest. Then Foley's going to play a basic Swamp as his land for turn, and then he's going to tap for 2 mana using the Ancient Tomb, losing 2 life to simply play an Arcane Signet. Then he decides he hasn't been doing enough aristocrat things, so he's going to tap for 3 mana and cast the enchantment Bastion of Remembrance. When this enters the battlefield, it's going to make him a 1/1 human soldier token, and with that he has 1 more action. He'll tap for 2 and cast a new card, Rip Apart. He'll use it to destroy the Wishclaw talisman, so I can't use it. After that, he's going to pass the turn to Guy, where Guy will untap, and Ajdin will remember to make his pest on time. Then Guy's going to use his library. He'll look at the top 3, he'll actually draw them, but he'll put 2 back, and then drop Sunpetal Grove as his land for turn, which triggers Field of the Dead, and he is going to make a 2/2 zombie. After that, his extra land will be a Verdant Catacombs, also triggering Field of the Dead to get another 2/2 zombie, and then Guy decides it's time to tap some mana. This time around, he's going to tap for a grand total of 7, so he can play the enchantment Zendikar Resurgent. Foley knows what that means, so he has a response. He's going to tap for 1 white, and with the Resurgent on the stack, he's going to silence. That's going to make it so Guy can't cast any more spells this turn. Actually, nobody can, so Guy can't do anything else, and he passes to me. I'll draw my card for turn. Ajdin will make his pest. Then I'm going to tap for 5 mana, and I'm going to cast Dictate of the Twin Gods. While it's on the stack, it's going to trigger Vial Smasher, so I set up the dice and roll, and then Foley is going to be the one to take 5 damage. Then the Dictate resolves, and we pass to Ajdin's turn, where he's going to make a pest on his upkeep and draw his card for turn. Then he's going to make some big mana plays. He's going to tap out all of his lands, and after he does that, he's going to pay 10 life, dropping down to 1 in order to untap all of his lands. He now has 11 floating total, so he's going to tap the remaining lands he has to double that floating mana to a total of 22. After that, he'll use 3 of that floating mana, dropping down to 19 floating to play Crucible of Worlds so he can play lands out of his graveyard, and he'll play Glacial Chasm. This triggers the Chasm and the Retreat, so he's going to decide that he wants to gain 2 life going to 3, and then with the rest of his mana, he's going to cast Torment of Hailfire, where X equals 17.
Beep, 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 beep. Guy, what you gonna do?
Die.
Right. Oh. Beep, 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 beep. 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Beep, 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 beep. Ah! Beep.
Another win from Beledros. This deck keeps kind of impressing me no matter how Ajdin builds it. We're going to talk about how the game went. I'm not going to drag on too far today. I'm on a bit of a time constraint as this video was supposed to go up earlier, but I can't be held responsible when I'm responsible for managing my own time, which is a really bad catch-22. But let's talk about how the game went. And a person that sticks out to me as a really good person to like, hey, this is an obvious thing that was weird that happened. There's 2 of them. Let's talk about me as the first one, because my deck didn't appear to do fucking anything. I sat there and kept jamming Vial Smasher, and that's because the way my deck's tuned, this particular deck, this is the same deck that I played. I don't think it has any updates. It's the same deck that I played for the Commander Legends set release video we did. Link in the description, probably, maybe, I forgot. I have no clue. But this deck, it puts its foot on the gas, and it doesn't let up, and if it's interrupted, it has to keep trying to do its thing, and every time it's interrupted, it gets worse at doing its thing. There's a better way to build this deck, but I haven't done it yet. I kept getting interacted with, I didn't have enough interaction to stop the interaction, board wipes being the prime interaction in this game, and I was just forced to kind of play Vial Smasher over and over, which wasn't very good, and that's all there was to that. Another one that was maybe not as obvious, maybe some of you already know, this is not my first time explaining this little weird dichotomy that Guy's Zacama deck has in our pods, but he was being pressured hard the whole game, non-stop. People were trying to make sure that he was subdued, and there's a reason for that. He ramped very quickly, which means something special when you're a big mana combo deck like Zacama. He already had access to a Sanctum of Eternity, which luckily was dealt with by Ajdin's Casualties of War, but his deck plays a lot of ways to recur it. I think off the back of my hand I can at least think of Noxious Revival, and I believe Eternal Witness. So because of that, Guy was going to be able to, at the very least, gain a ton of life with Zacama, and then maybe I just stay in the game. You know, if he does that, maybe I can hang out in the game, and then I kill my other 2 opponents quicker because Guy has an arbitrarily high amount of life, even if he can't loop his Zacama with the Sanctum of Eternity. But everyone kind of knew this. Everyone also knew, because we were all trying to play to the board, that he was the police. He was the fun police. He had the board wipes. So we had to kill him because we wanted to play the game, and we had to kill him because of how good his combo actually is in the end game. And he was closer than it looked like he was to just getting there. If it weren't for Foley's silence, he may have just done it. You know, but Foley silenced him, and that put him out of it. But that Zendikar Resurgent, doubling his mana, at the very least, he would have had an arbitrarily high life total, and no one would have permanence. It would have been brutal. And then we'll talk about Foley for just a moment. He did stuff, like he did the Mardu Aristocrat stuff. His deck was a little on the slower end this game. He was also on the receiving end of a lot of the board wipes. And he drew some cards, you know, off of his survivalist, which I think I forgot to mention in the voiceover now that I'm thinking about it. One of those board wipes, he had a species specialist out. There were 3 humans, so he drew 3 cards, which was really cool. But he didn't really hang. There's not a whole lot to say. Normally we see an Angel of Glory's Rise combo out of him, but we didn't today. And then, holy crap, Beledros, Witherbloom, Witherdrip. He's got this little earring on, and I latched onto that really hard, so I've been calling him Witherdrip, because earring equals drip. I'm a millennial. But it was good. We've seen the aristocrat-esque build that he wanted to do, where he utilizes the pests, and this version just wants to make a lot of land drops and go big on mana, and then double the mana with Witherbloom, and it was good. It was just really good. I liked it. I'd love to see more of it, and you will, because I believe he's planning to actually completely paper this deck out. This deck was relegated to being a proxy deck to stop us from having to buy extra resources. Like, I don't think Ajdin wants to buy more shocks and fetches and stuff for this deck, but through the grapevine, I've heard that he's planning to actually just physically buy the deck, which is awesome. That means he really likes it. He also likes landfall. Anyway, that's all I should have for you guys today. You know about the giveaway. I've told you everything you should need to know about that, and at this point, if you haven't heard about it, you better get in now, because we're wrapping it up tonight. And you'll hear about it sometime next week, who won the giveaway, all that blah, blah, blah. Because we're still waiting on the mats to actually get in from YourPlaymat, which is our Playmat sponsor, description, yada, yada. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.